We're joined right now by Ireland and Leinster winger James Lowe, who's teamed up with Rugby Players Ireland, Zurich and the Z Zurich Foundation to invite post-primary schools to take part in the 2021-2022 Tackle Your Feelings Schools Mental Wellbeing Programme as part of the hashtag I'm Taking Control campaign. The Tackle Your Feelings Schools programme is a classroom-based, teacher-led life skills development programme which enables students to build healthy habits and personal coping strategies, as well as kindness and understanding when it comes to mental health and well-being. James, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
How are these campaigns like for you to get involved in? Is mental health something that you were always aware of and minding your own mental health as someone coming through as a rugby professional, or is it actually later in life you start to look back and go, geez, I could have been a bit nicer to myself as a teenager?
No. I had no idea when you were asking me in terms of mental health growing up. I had no understanding of what it actually meant, and to be able to now, put a platform together and help kids who are now, going back to school after a very disruptive year. And, if we can help in any way, shape or form that we can, that's what we're here for.
Have you got better at it then as your career has gone on at compartmentalising?
100%. Yeah, for sure. I was never always the way I am today. When I first became a professional athlete at the age of 19, I made my debut for Tasman back in New Zealand, and I was a very big critic of myself, especially when I didn't play well. And if I did play well, I'd be looking for praise as well. So, I'd be reading the headlines and reading what other people were saying about me, and it took me, the good guts of 3 to 4 years, that sort of evolution of understanding that, people's opinions really, really don't matter. The only thing that you can do is control your Monday to Friday to make sure you perform on a Saturday. And that's I guess the byproduct of what people say is how you perform. So if you can get on top of your performances, they'll say what they want to say. People always try to tear you down, but look, this is an awesome campaign and something I'm proud to be a part of.
Ironically, it's the further you get in your career, the more access you have to people who can help you with that stuff. When actually it's really at 16, 17, 18, you need to learn these skills. It's when you reach the Ireland setup that actually you've got a sports psychologist on tap, or maybe you reach Leinster, you've got access to that kind of stuff. By which stage, I'm not saying you've perfected it, but you've certainly come through some of the maturity.
100%. Like you tell me at 16, 17, that you were open and transparent about how you're actually feeling about, relationships with your parents and kids at school, and how it actually affects you when things like that get on top. And then, add schoolwork, add trying to perform in terms of sports. It's a melting pot of trouble in a lot of ways. And, to be able to support a campaign that can front foot a lot of the problems that kids and students are going through, it's something I want to help out with.
James, you mentioned there that there was a point in your career when you stopped listening to the critics and you started to focus on what you were doing Monday to Friday. Was there a particular moment that changed for you?
So I had access to a mental skills coach, from about 21 years of age. And before that, I was always very, I had a lot of luck go my way early on in my career, where the teams that I was fortunate enough to play with, they were having players in my position leave, or it was the start of a season and someone would break a hand and all of a sudden I was thrown into the deep end. And to be fair, I was able to perform, but there was still something that I couldn't get on top of. And a lot of it was relationships with probably teammates more than anything. I felt like I was good enough, but I never really had their trust. Their trust that I was always going to be there when they needed me, trust off the field. And I went and caught up with a fella called David Galbraith. So he works with New Zealand High Performance Sport. And he asked me what do you do Monday to Friday for other people? What do you do before a game? What are your goals? And we really stripped it all back into being, a good person by the end of the day. And I felt like from then my relationships on and off the field with people that I needed to trust grew exponentially. And the byproduct of that was I became what I felt was a lot better player. So he literally told me, you got to stop putting so much pressure on yourself to perform. You got to stop having these goals and targets and things that you want to meet, because that there was always at the forefront of my mind. It's not, catch, pass, kick, run over someone. It was, I had other things in my head going on. And mate, when you break any sport down, it comes back to the basics, the things that you learn when you're 5, 6 years old. So he was an amazing help for me early on in my career.
And are you still leaning on those now?
100%. Yeah. Actually, he had a book. He's a great man, David Galbraith, and we message each other still, and he's on the other side of the world. And he's got a book, and it's like a non-profit. He actually paid for absolutely everything, and took none of the profits. He gave it back to charity. And I still lean on those. They were quite emotional sessions and quite vulnerable sessions to have with him in his office. But like leaving those, you broke down so many barriers in your head, because half of it's the battle in your head. Like that's the most intimidating thing, and accepting, sometimes when you're wrong, or when you actually need help, because it's not a bad thing to ask for help. But bringing it back to the schools campaign, like at 16 years old, I wasn't asking for help. I thought I was Superman. Like, I had everything sorted.
Like it's a really healthy culture then that existed in New Zealand. Do you think that culture is the same? Is it a little bit different when you moved to Ireland?
I would say it was different, but there's a whole load of things as to why it was different, and it's not different in a bad way. I find coming to Ireland, especially coming to Dublin and playing for Leinster, 95% of the people who play in Leinster, I'm talking like 40 out of the squad of 45, their whole family is still like they're from Dublin. So they already have such a connection to the place. They've got such a great support structure around them. And I'm not saying that they haven't gone through the exact same process that I've potentially gone through. They've probably gone through down a different avenue of seeking help. And, at the end of the day, the quicker you can get on top of your mental well-being, your mental health, and being able to actually talk and have vulnerable conversations, I find, rugby becomes a lot easier.
How is your own form heading into the new season? And because it was a really interesting Six Nations campaign from your perspective, getting straight in the team and then coming out of the team for a bit. So obviously, from a professional perspective, that might feel like a bit of a setback. But at the same time, you're very close to that team at the moment, and you must feel like a bit of form and consistency over the next 12 months is going to get you into that team if you can unleash your full potential. Yeah,
100%. I think you've hit the nail on the head there for sure. Like this is coming from like, I feel like it'll be my own fault if I'm not there, and that's not saying, you can take that any way you want, but I feel like I have everything there. It's about putting in performances consistently to make sure that, when they talk about, the number 11 jumper, that I'm the name on the top of the list. So for me, it's like, obviously my defense was the one thing that was letting me down. I'd do so many good things, and then, I wouldn't be there when, I didn't whack someone when I needed to whack someone, pretty much. So that there has been at the forefront of my mind for a lot of the time. And, I've put a lot of hours in to try and perfect the craft, and it's something that's always evolving, especially how the game is progressing. So no, I feel like I've made leaps and bounds. Sometimes you need to get whacked on the nose to really realize, we need to get on top of this. And I feel like I've done, like I said, hours upon hours with different people, just perfecting and understanding and seeing things unfold to make a better decision quicker. And I'm excited to really get into rugby because, there's unfortunately some people at training I've been able to pick them out a few times and got a couple of good shoulders on. So, mate, I'm looking forward to the rugby season because that's where you get to really express yourself. And, that's what I'm all about.
Well, we wish you the very best with that, James. Thanks a million for making the time to talk to us this morning. And it's interesting that the process that we talked about at the start is the same process that you're still using. It seems like different mental health versus defence, but it's the same kind of, you bring the application of the analysis and the thought and the honesty to the whole thing.
Oh, 100%. That's it with everything in life, mate. Like, it's just that I play sport and I figured it out through sport, but you could apply it to absolutely anything. If you're a painter, a gardener, postman, this application can help in all walks of life.
We wish you the very best of luck with the coming season, James. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Thanks. Bye.
James Lowe there chatting to us this morning on OTB AM as part of the Rugby Players Ireland and Zurich Tackle Your Feelings mental wellbeing programme and their new #I'm Taking Control campaign.